Now we're going to go through ranking the Harry Potter franchise from worst to best in terms of how much we enjoy it. So there are, and we'll just do the Harry Potters for this one. So that means there's 9 total movies because there's, eight total movies because there's 7. There's a part 1, part 2. I always forget I have the 20th anniversary thrown in my rankings on Letterboxd. But for the 8 movies from worst to best, we'll just go around the horn. So number 8. What's the last place for you guys? George, what's your last place Harry Potter movie?
All right.
And what's your rating?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. My last place Harry Potter movie is still a 4 out of 5. I love this franchise. It's my favorite franchise. So don't take this last place personally. If anyone listening, if this is like your favorite. I know one of the Raiders twins, this is his number 1. So I apologize. But I have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone at number 8. Again, I love this movie. I think this movie does such a brilliant job at introducing us to the wizarding world. I think this is the one movie that just genuinely just feels magical. You know, it just feels just incredibly magical. You know, they're on the boats pulling up to Hogwarts. It's everything about this movie is just magical, and I love it. But it is in my 8th place.
Valid. I mean, something's got to be last place.
Something's got to be last place.
You go next,
Cameron.
Tyler. You go next.
Okay, me next. My last place is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets at a 3.5 out of 5. So really enjoy it. And my Harry Potter rankings move around all the time because it's no secret. Everyone says like, oh, it's one of the most consistent franchises of all time, and that's because it is true. So many of them for me are just neck and neck because I think they're all pretty good. So 3.5 out of 5 for me is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And I think honestly, like the only reason might be because I've seen that one the most by like miles. Because for some reason on like ABC Family growing up, like that was the one they were always always replaying that one. And then like second most would be like the first one, but it would always be the first 2, maybe because like those are the most like kid-ish. So like that's like the easiest to replay. But so many times I had to just like sit there and watch that freaking snake in the underworld. And it spooked me every time.
I swear, every time I was homesick from school, it was either I was watching a game show or a Harry Potter movie because that's all that was on TV at like 12 p.m.
Yeah, it's crazy how much play that got on cable television. But for me, last place is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, but that's no slight to it whatsoever. Cameron?
Yeah. So I was never like a Harry Potter hater, but I always argued they like never had the highs of most franchises. I fucking love this rewatch. I really enjoyed the rewatch. But my bottom, and it's a 3.5 out of 5, the only 3.5, 74 out of 100, I believe, 70 something like that out of 100, is Chamber of Secrets as well. I guess 69 out of 100. So it's pretty, very cool, right? I enjoyed this one a whole lot. I just think so. The first one for me, and we'll talk about it, is a lot of great like introduction to this world. And whereas like the children acting isn't perfect by any means, and it gets better throughout the series, but I think this in Chamber of Secrets, you no longer have the benefit of being like the introduction to the world where I give you that little like pass. And like when you see Hogwarts for the first time in the first one, it's like kind of takes you back a little bit. It's like really cool to see. And in this one, like I think the child acting is still not all there. I like the introduction of like Tom Riddle. You start getting a little bit more into the Voldemort lore, but I don't think it's as strong as the rest. But it's still goddamn good. Big fan. Also, I hate when like J.K. Rowling just makes someone's name like Tom. I forget what his middle name
Marvolo.
is. Marvolo Riddle, and I understand it's so that it spells out like Lord Voldemort, but I think that's fucking stupid whenever that kind of revelation comes, because it's like you just make his name whatever he wanted. But that's just I understand.
You just wrote that.
Yeah, I understand. He's like, how can I take my name and make it spell something else? Like, but does Voldemort mean anything? Like, did he get lucky at childbirth? Like,
nope.
Why Voldemort? Just because he had the like letters? It would have been Voldemort if he was never had a T in his name. Like it just, in my opinion, but you know, it's all right.
7th place, George. What's your second to last?
My second to last is Chamber of Secrets, but I have it slightly higher than Sorcerer's Stone for that exact reason. Cam has it in last place. I like that we're getting into the Voldemort lore of things. I like that.
That's not why it's in last place. I enjoy that part. I just
I'm just I get it. But I like that. I like the mystery aspect of it. It just feels like the sense of urgency just feels a little higher, whereas in Sorcerer's Stone it does feel like more of a children's movie, where in Chamber of Secrets we're kind of diving into a little bit deeper stuff, not as deep as like we eventually get to with Prisoner of Azkaban and shit like that. But yeah, I like the Voldemort lore introduction. I like the final sequence with the snake. I like the entire Chamber of Secrets stuff. It's just very mysterious, very intriguing, and I don't know, I just find myself these rankings for me are just mostly based on like which ones I kind of find myself rewatching the most, and I find myself rewatching Chamber of Secrets more often than Sorcerer's Stone.
Valid. Yeah, for me, the bottom two for me are Chamber of Secrets and Philosopher's Stone, which I like flip back and forth all the time. They're like neck and neck for me. But I give a slight edge to Philosopher's Stone, and I think that was a recent change. I think most often I had Chamber of Secrets a little higher, but Philosopher's Stone is just, or Sorcerer's Stone, or whatever you want to call it, is just like it's just so fun to see in the whole world. You see Hogwarts for the first time. You get to learn what Quidditch is. The ending does get a little dark too, with Voldemort's face in the back of what is that? Professor Quirrell, is that his last name? Yeah. Quirrell's back of his head. You get the iconic TikTok sound.
Dude,
I make my moves.
Oh my God, that sound has been so overdone.
Yeah, crazy.
Awesome.
It is so annoying.
But yeah, Philosopher's Stone just awesome being introduced to that whole world. It's just crazy.
I will say, in Chamber of Secrets, and I've been on a rant about Dumbledore this week on Letterboxd. Ruins these children's education by not giving them year-end exams. Now you got people going out into the world, haven't had these exams, like they don't know what's going on in the wizarding world. This is why we need pure blood wizards. These damn mudbloods.
Oh man, Cam, what's your second to last place?
All right, second to last place is Goblet of Fire. Actually, big fan of Goblet of Fire, and this is where I get into 4 out of 5, so 76 out of 100 for myself. Big fan of Goblet of Fire, but I just feel like the games weren't like as intriguing as I would hope. Like I really enjoy them. I didn't love them, I would say. I definitely think there are things they could have done differently, but like I again, it's pretty highly rated. I won't be a Harry Potter hater anymore after watching these, because I did like really enjoy my watch through. I forget what exactly my like anti Dumbledore slander.
When he gave the points to Harry after the water.
Oh yeah. Fucking, oh my God. Awarding what is it, noble points or something?
Yeah. for going back and saving that girl.
Bullshit Dumbledore. You're giving out Make-A-Wish points to Harry this week. Like giving him free phony points. It's absolute bullshit. And Victor Crumb looks like Nikola Jokic.
He does.
I'm pretty sure they're the same exact person.
True.
Also, -1 point to the costume department for making Ron look like that, for doing Ron so dirty.
Yeah, did him dirty in this movie. Same with Harry's hair too.
Yeah, everyone's hair in this one. It's bad. bad. But I like that. I'll say, I don't know when to bring this up perfectly. I'll say I like that Harry and Ginny end up together and not Harry and Hermione, because that's just too tropey. But
yeah.
J.K. Rowling was all like, hey, let's make it a little different. And I like that. Also, J.K. Rowling is so fucking racist in these movies. Like the names of these people are crazy. I think is this the one that introduced it? And I just watched, so I should know. Cho Chang. The only Asian character with Cho Chang. That's so fucked up,
a crazy name to give her.
And then all of the goblins are just Jewish people. That's so racist, J.K. Like, this is awful.
But you know what's funny is the Dean, the only like black kid, she names Dean, like the whitest name out there.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
She's like this is where I draw the line. I'm not playing with this.
She's crazy.
Absurd.
Or her publisher was like reading through the book and was like, "This name is kind of racist. You sure?" She's like, "Yeah, keep that name." And then she gets to like his name and she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm drawing the line.
Yeah,
You're changing this to Dean."
Dean.
Not
there are a lot of
Jarquavius.
memes about- There are a lot of memes about that, but yeah, it's bad. It's bad during these
Yeah,
things,
J.K.
man.
Rowling, very shit person.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's made
So
me-
we just did Cam second to last place, Goblet of Fire.
Yeah.
George, what's your sixth place?
My number 6, and like the more I look at my ranking, the more I feel like this is too low for this, but I mean that's just how highly I think of this franchise. I have Deathly Hallows Part 1, which I think is great. Every time I watch this movie, I grow fonder of it. I just find so much value in it as like the part 1 of this epic conclusion. I think when you look at it from that lens, it does a good job. There's such a more depressed tone to this movie that like sets up for a more emotional part 2. I think everything this movie does to set up for Deathly Hallows Part 2, it does incredibly well. And then I said in my Letterboxd review when I had initially reviewed this a while back, I think right there with Half-Blood Prince, I think this is the best looking Harry Potter movie. I think it's just gorgeous. You know, you have like Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they're like on the run, so it just opens the field for these like really wide landscape shots, this really cool sequence in the forest where they're kind of running. Yeah, I see a lot of value. This is the 4 out of 5. This is my last 4 out of 5. So after this, we're getting into the 4.5s for me. But as a part 1, I think this is a really solid outing.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, and like it's just hard at this point to stack these up because they all get so close.
That's the thing. This is why every time I've posted a ranking of this on TikTok, like once every 7 months, every time I rewatch it, and every time I do, someone comments, bro keeps recycling material. I'm like, no, it's just every time I rewatch this franchise, something changes within my ranking. Either I have a different number 1, or I'll switch like my 3 and 4. Right. Or Deathly Hallows Part 1 used to be my last place one, but I bumped it up to 6. Shit like that. Like every time I rewatch this franchise, something about the ranking changes.
Right. Yep. No, totally agree. Mine moves around all the time. So my 6th place, so third to last, is Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, which at one point I don't know if it still is, but I think it's your favorite. But for me, I still really enjoy it. I think the only thing that I didn't like about it is I think on my latest rewatch, it just felt like a little too much filler for my taste. But like again, I still really liked it. But because like this is the one where like Dolores is really starting to take over. Starting to take over Hogwarts. Yep. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's like this one just always annoys me because I'm always like, how are you like letting like it's just. I just always get so annoyed with how she just takes over Hogwarts like so easily, and I'm just like, God, it's just. Do something, someone like it's clearly just such a bitch. Like, stop her. But yeah, like still awesome. I'm trying to think of like what the big climax of this one is. Is this one the battle of Dumbledore and Voldemort at the
Dumbledore and Voldemort at the end when they're in they go down to like get the prophecy from wherever they are, the government hall. Mm-hmm. And Harry and the gang fight the Death Eaters, and then this is the one spoiler alert where Sirius dies. Very emotional, very heartbreaking.
That was a long time ago. Like that, like this movie came out a long time.
Yeah, a while back.
It came out even before it.
Tyler, are we still in your 3.5s right now?
Yeah, this is my last 3.5.
Okay.
I forgot to mention those.
What did I miss anything, or was George?
No, my 6th place is Order of the Phoenix, 3.5.
My 6 was Deathly Hallows Part 1, 4.
Okay. Yeah,
and now it's you. And I was gonna ask you. I keep forgetting to ask you, Ken. On this rewatch, all your scores out of 100 were they moved around a bit, or are they just pretty much the same?
No, I kept them relatively the same, mostly just because like I'm not gonna move them a couple points. Yeah, like I don't know if they're a couple points higher, but I think I like actually one score was moved around, which made me because 2 were tied. Then I moved another score just to bump it up. So that kind of changed. So one list was changed, I guess.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. But my 6 is also Order of the Phoenix, Tyler. Without a doubt, I'm sure you guys mentioned it, the best wizarding battle in any of the Harry Potters.
One of you posted, or did someone else on Movie Talk?
I posted it.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, of course. Because that shit's fantastic. Just I don't know why, like I don't know why we didn't get like more cool wizarding battles, and that's one gripe I'd have with Harry Potter. Like it's we get, you know, the electricity shooting from the wands, but I feel like we never got like a really cool wizarding battle where they're conjuring up fire or conjuring up this glass and then turning it into dust like they are in this one.
Well, they kind of like, I mean, we'll get into it when we talk about, I guess, what we want to see in the upcoming TV show or the reboot, but like they robbed us of that in Deathly Hallows Part 2 with the final climactic battle of like Harry and Voldemort. Like in the books, they're like in the dining hall, like everyone is watching and like they're going at it, and then Voldemort starts to get weaker and weaker, and like Harry just starts to like bitch him about, and it's like, I don't know, that would have been sick. Like that would have been fantastic, as opposed to just the two of them in the courtyard alone.
Yeah, that's fair, and that we can talk about that in the future. But that's definitely something I would enjoy to see, is some cooler wizarding battles, just because you don't really get a sense of all they can do, I feel like, within the movies. And again, like it's done well, just not perfect. And I think that's what, for me, makes this franchise a lot of 4 out of 5s versus 4.5s or whatever. Because I do think the quality of movies there, it's just not. I don't know. That's one gripe of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? I assume you guys mentioned a bunch about Order of the Phoenix, but that's the big takeaway, is the best wizarding battle without a doubt. Yeah.
And did you wait? Was that also what your?
That was my 6. Yeah. So
okay,
77 out of 100.
All right. So Cam and I line up there. George, now we're in 5th place.
Now we're in 5th place. My number 5, and now for me personally, we're getting into our 4.5s. I have Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is like, if they had made this like Deathly Hallows Part 1 and then made Part 1, Part 2, and Part 2, Part 3, I think that would have made sense as like the entire like concluding trilogy of Harry Potter, because I think this movie does such a good job at like expanding the lore around Voldemort. Like we had always had, like the extent of the Voldemort lore was he who shall not be named, you know, killed Harry Potter's parents, and then Order of the Phoenix kind of gave us like the whole, you know, when he was in his prime, he had massive numbers of witches and wizards. Like the extent of the Voldemort lore was really just hearing other characters like talk about him out of fear. Whereas in Half-Blood Prince, now we're really diving into like Dumbledore and his backstory with Tom Riddle. And I think that plays out like incredibly well as like technically like a Part 1 to this concluding trilogy of like Half-Blood Prince, Deathly Hallows Part 1, and Deathly Hallows Part 2. And then, like I said, for Deathly Hallows Part 1, I think this is the best looking Harry Potter movie. And I don't think it's like particularly close. I think this is a gorgeous film to look at. And then obviously, again, spoiler alert, it's capped off with like the most emotional scene in Harry Potter, or maybe the second most emotional scene in Harry Potter, of Dumbledore's death, which is just...
I can't believe you're throwing out spoiler alerts.
Well, just in case, you know, I just got to be respectful. But yeah, I got Half-Blood Prince at number 5. 4.5 out of 5. Shit
right.
Bangs.
Yeah, I'm into my 4 out of 5s now. So everything else is 3.5 out of 5s. I have nothing that's lower than a 3.5. But at 5th place, I have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I feel like that's like the consensus, like number 1 of all time. But it's in 5th place for me. I still really like it.
I'm happy with your take there, and I'm not saying it's that low for me by any means, but I always don't have it number 1 and get a bunch of comments. There's a spoiler alert, but I like that.
Yeah, it's not my number 1, but 5 is.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alfonso Cuarón's like the most acclaimed director of the series, so a lot of people like into film really like, you know, kind of favor it as well. But I mean, it definitely takes a much needed turn for the franchise. You go from the 2 kiddie movies to now this one goes completely dark. The thing is, like, the whole like final like third of the movie, and as George would say, spoiler alert, I just didn't care enough for like Buckbeak for like me to be super invested. For me to be invested in this like story. And then like the aspect of time travel is cool, but you have to like relive the entire ending like twice for like 30 minutes each time. And I was just like, I get it. But like the final ending was obviously really cool. But I like a lot of it. I like how it got dark and then kind of just continues dark tone.
They never use time travel again in this series.
No, it would have been so beneficial so many moments in this fucking franchise.
I get it, because anytime you deal with time travel, you can always say, why don't you just travel back? Like, if this happens, why just travel back, change it? Well, all that. So I understand it. It's just one of those things. Don't introduce it if you're not going to, like, don't introduce it at least this early on. if you're not gonna like reuse it. I feel
Right.
like, and yeah, I that's one thing that like just kind of is odd to me.
Yeah,
least.
time travel is a tough nugget to crack, and how you
it's
work
impossible
it
to
in.
crack.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you can never use it and then it not be the answer the next time, because any problem, time travel. Any problem, time travel. Like, yeah, that's your answer. But and that's the annoying part of it, to be honest.
Right.
But yeah, and
but of course,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's not like they destroyed the turntable or whatever she has. I forget what it's called. It's not like they did anything to it. She still has it, but like they just never talk about it again.
Is that just Dumbledore being a piece of shit again, not giving them time travel?
Probably
in the future.
Fucking awful teacher. Dude, just sucks.
Obviously, in this one, we're also like introduced to the Dementors. One of the craziest, like coolest thing ever. The way they come across on screen, so terrifying. That scene.
Expecto Patronum.
Oh, that scene. Yeah, that scene bangs. It's a great scene.
Are we on to 5?
5.
Yeah, 5th place for you.
For some reason, my like list. So I changed my list, and it's showing up like 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8. Like, so I swear I have this one higher, and then I looked at the numbers below, and they just haven't changed the order. But my number 5, a 78 out of 100. The only score I dropped a little is the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone. I give a whole lot of benefits to this movie being the first and just like introducing us to this wizarding world, because I think if they fall flat there, and it's kind of like Iron Man, if you fall flat there, you don't have the rest of the franchise being as great. This, I think, hits on 99% of the things, except like the children acting suck. And also the CGI of Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets really struggles, I think, especially a lot of things looking almost like a lot of creatures looking like gelatinous almost, and then the or rubbery, and then the Quidditch matches looking not that great when they're flying around. I think a lot of that aspect of it, and that's just technology of the time. But I think that struggles a good amount in that. But I do love like the introduction. You get the theme for the first time. You see Hogwarts for the first time. All of that is done very well, and I think is a big reason that this franchise did so well, to be quite honest. So I'm a big fan of it. And also just, again, Albus Dumbledore giving out phony points at the end of the year, awards 170 points to Gryffindor out of pure bullshit. Just like Hermione, courage, 50 points. And then he gives 10 points to Neville for just not being an asshole.
For just being there.
Yeah, like, what the hell, man?
For literally just existing and not cursing anyone out.
This first year House Cup is under protest because that's some bullshit.
Well, there was a couple of years where we would give out free points at the end of the year, and that's why, like, if I was a student at Hogwarts,
I don't think there are. It's just
really?
this
It's
year,
just that
man.
one?
It's at least in the movies.
I feel like at the end of like the movies and other movies,
No,
he's,
at
like,
the end of the
awards
second
stuff.
movie, they cancel the test, and then in Goblet of Fire, they give out those phony points to Harry. But other than that, this is the only time. It's bullshit.
Yeah. If I was a student at Hogwarts, I would not try because like everyone would be like, "Come on, man, we got to win the House Cup." And like, it's rigged. It's a rigged game.
Rigged.
Yeah.
He's gonna pick whoever he
I
wants
want to know
to
where
win.
this man's morals stand. That's why I am vote for me for House of Hogwarts. Joe Voldemort. I'm out of Cadabra.
Number 4, 4th place, George. What's your movie?
4 for me is The Goblet of Fire. Before like the age of like 16, maybe, this was like the only Harry Potter movie I would rewatch like just incessantly. Like this was for the longest time my favorite one. I thought it was the coolest one. The games I thought were just so riveting, so compelling. I don't think they hold up in excitement as much as I would have liked, which is why I think over time this is like pretty much dropped from like my number 2 spot to my number 4 spot. Still held up from a lot of really, really solid moments. A lot of emotion with Hermione, Ron, and Harry. There's a lot of just brutal scenes with the dragon, and I think it just makes for a very compelling experience. Then, of course, just the entire pretty much final sequence with the maze and then meeting Voldemort for the first time, or like the official first time. I thought that entire scene was just
that is awesome.
It's
That's
just it's still a frightening scene. And you know what makes it frightening for me? The fact that he's walking around barefoot. I think that shit is scary. Just barefoot in a black cloak. Like, he's a frightening dude, and for some reason being barefoot, every time I see his ugly ass feet walking across the grass, I'm like, this is scary, man. I'd be frightened if this dude walked in my direction. But yeah, I got that at my number 4 spot out of 4.5 out of 5.
I will also say, like, with the scene where they have to, the challenge where they have to find the people in the water, there's no like challenge to it other than finding them. And maybe that's the point of it. I get that, but like, I don't know, you could have done some sort of action where they have to like fight off these mermaids or something, but they really don't. They just go in and grab them.
Yeah.
The only time Harry gets like attacked by the mermaids is when he tries to save
someone else.
Whoever the other person is. Is it Cho? It might be Cho.
Well, he's supposed to save Cho, but then he goes back to save
Ron as well, or something.
Ron maybe, or someone. Yeah.
I watched this 2 days ago, and I can't fucking remember. Because then he gets moral fiber points, which is phony points. But yeah, there's no like threat, it feels, and they also reveal that like the kids weren't in danger. They would have come up anyways, which is fine. But it doesn't. But the contestants don't know that at the time, so it would have been nice to like feel that threat a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. My 4th place is also Goblet of Fire, the 4th movie. I feel like it's the first 2/3 of the movie are like good, and then the final third is just incredible. Like the whole Voldemort finally materializing, final fight with Cedric Diggory, the emotional reaction to that. I feel like the final third of this movie is just so incredible. First 2/3 are still good, but I don't think they quite live up to it. I think the opening of this movie is like super frightening when they're at the big cup and they basically just get murked and they burn down the entire village. It's insane. The opening is just such a great way to hook you. And then throughout the rest of the movie, you're just always lurking in the back of your mind. And you're like, all right, they're here now. They're coming for sure. And then obviously you get the Cedric Diggory, Robert Pattinson death, R.I.P. Legendary when they come floating down in the beginning of the movie from the sky or whatever, and just like running through air.
Just like running,
yeah.
I also would say, like, I don't think it's fair to introduce a character like Mad Eye Moody and then have it revealed that it wasn't Mad Eye Moody, because we've never met this guy before, so I didn't love that. I don't think, like, I've never met this guy. I don't know how he's supposed to act or if he's doing anything weird, you know?
Yeah.
They try to play it off with like the lip licking the entire time and like the twitching he does.
And he's drinking that potion that he
I
get that, but I didn't know it wasn't like in previous movies he wasn't doing that, right? You know?
Yeah, it's true.
I don't love.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Yeah. 4th place, Cam.
Yeah, 4th place for me is Deathly Hallows Part 1. Raised it up to a 79 out of 100. So for me, 2 through 7 are all 4 out of 5s, and then I have a 4.5 and a 3.5 at 8. But yeah, they're all, I think all the Harry Potters are very, very good, I would say. Deathly Hallows Part 1, least bit of action you get, and it's a setup for Part 2, but I think we've talked this before. I prefer that they've done a 2-part movie. I feel like this book needed 2 parts, unlike like Mockingjay in the Hunger Games franchise, which just like the first movie just stinks.
Fumbled the bag.
Yeah. Whereas this, I think it's important to have the 2 parts, and I think it ends on a really good note with the Dobby death. And I like it a lot. And you get Ron just being an asshole because he's wearing that Horcrux around his neck, and then he leaves for like 20 minutes and then comes back. He
just reappears.
Yeah, that's always good stuff. He just leaves and then comes back. Hey, bud. But
like, where have you been, bro? Oh, just walking.
Also, dude, I don't know when to mention this, but the casts in all of these are so goddamn good. Like every single character.
Yeah.
You know, every time when I was rewatching, every time I'm like, holy shit, that's Gary Oldman, or holy shit, that's Helena Bonham Carter. And then Luna Lovegood's dad is Reese Ifans, or I don't know exactly. It's the lizard from Spider-Man 2, and then a bunch of other things. But I'm like, oh shit, he's in this, and it's just a bunch of people that the whole time I was going, hey, look at this guy, I know him. And then Brendan Gleeson is Mad Eye Moody, all that jazz. Just great castings all around. Hey, bud, maybe don't steal my coffee. But yeah, that's my number 4.
Yeah, they cooked on this in the casting
really
department.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3, maybe to a surprise, is The Order of the Phoenix. But this is what I'm saying. Every time I rewatch this Harry Potter franchise, like my top 3 will change in order. This time around, I had Order of the Phoenix at number 3. I still fucking love this movie. I think it's the darkest tone. I like the fact that we're really diving into Harry's, like, the mental aspect of what it means to be the chosen one. Like, it's eating him alive, and he's clearly not handling it too well. So he has to, like, kind of go into those, like, lesson things with Snape. But this is, like, the darkest Harry Potter movie, and I fucking love it. It's got the tone of, right from the beginning, right when Harry walks into the Weasleys', or not even, it's not even the Weasleys' home. It's like the getaway house or whatever you want to call it, the Order of the Phoenix headquarters. It's just a very, very, like, dark tone. Like, Voldemort's building an army. You know, he used to have these numbers of witches and wizards, and Harry's there. He's like, well, he's building an army that I want to fight. Like, it's all just, it's like the first, like, very mature movie, I think, as we kind of get into, like, this final, like, push of, like, the final battle with Voldemort, and I just fucking love that. And then, of course, you guys mentioned it, the final battle with Dumbledore and Voldemort. Like Cam said, wish we got more of those across the franchise, because that shit was sick. That, like, one part where fucking Dumbledore has Voldemort in, like, the water, and then Voldemort drops and just, like, shoots his, like, cloak at Dumbledore. I don't even know what he does, but it looks so cool. So yeah, I got Order of the Phoenix number 3, 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, because I swear, because I think I remember the first time I ever saw your Harry Potter rankings. That was number 1, right?
Yeah, it was number 1. Then it was like number 4. Then it moved back to number 2. My top 5 just change all the time. Every time I watch this fucking franchise as a new ranking. I could watch this franchise this week, and we could do another episode of this next week, and my ranking will be different.
Right. Yeah. Every time I rewatch it, I'm gonna move around at least one movie.
I might move around a movie after this episode, after just talking about it.
Why not? Might fuck around and move around. My third place is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Like I feel like it's just kind of not a forgotten movie, but I feel like it's. I mean, everyone talks about Deathly Hallows movies, and then Goblet of Fire. I feel like it's the most buzz because it's just like I don't know. I feel like everyone kind of just talks about that one the most fondly in terms of just like enjoyment, and then you kind of Order the Phoenix is the consensus number 1, or I mean Prisoner of Azkaban, and you get Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets are the ones that everyone watched a million times as a kid. I feel like I hear no one talk about Half-Blood Prince the most, but it's in my top 3. Gorgeous looking movie. You get validation on Draco's turn to the dark, or kind of just almost fulfilling his prophecy, because you could tell he's like hesitant the whole time, but he just had enough of an opening for darkness that it eventually would creep completely in, even if it felt like he wasn't, he was being pressured by his father. He was being pressured by a lot of people in his life, but he just had enough of the susceptibility to be like a dark person that it was inevitable that he was going to ultimately succumb and do things like, the end of this movie, killing off Dumbledore. You get to see Snape's true motives a bit, and then obviously you fully get to see Snape's true motives in Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2. But Half-Blood Prince, the ending, again, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the Harry Potter movies don't feel like consistent from beginning to end for me. I mean, I really enjoy all of them, but again, this is similar to Goblet of Fire almost, where I think the ending is just like so cracked and so 5 out of 5 that it elevates the rest of the movie a bit for me. But still, is like, and like George said when he's reviewing this one, it truly does feel like kind of like a final trilogy of the series. This would be like a part 1, because this is really breaking down the entire world and really setting up the conflict and being like, all right, now shit's completely on the fan. Hogwarts is in peril. The world is crumbling. Like, Harry Potter's going to have to save this world and make sacrifices. So then let's get into the final 2 movies. So it does kind of truly does feel like a final trilogy. But third place for me is the Half-Blood Prince. Cameron, number 3.
Yeah, for me, what's up? Do you need something? Okay, sorry. For me, third place is, and I switched this live on air because I think you gave me the courage to do it, Tyler. In third place is Prisoner of Azkaban for me. 82 out of 100. I just flipped this in my next one. I like it a lot. I think time travel's a stupid use and you just can't make it good, but I think this one does about as good of a job as you can. I think this one stylistically is one of the better Harry Potters, just like in terms of how it's directed, and you can see that through Alfonso Cuarón, who obviously has like the most. I'm trying to think of the word, the deepest resume of any of these directors. But yeah, I do think it does all of that really well. I just don't love time travel as much as most, and I like this movie a whole lot. And I think the story of the next two that I mentioned is a little more compelling. And this is like that turn that Tyler said. What's up, bud? This is the turn that Tyler said that, we kind of need it right when we get into these. Oh my gosh, we get into these movies. You need to get a little darker. And the Harry Potter franchise does grow with this audience, which is a big benefit. And I think this is where you start seeing that.
Definitely. Into our top two now. So number 2, silver medal, George.
Yeah, I'll just kind of run off of what Cam said because my number 2 is Prisoner of Azkaban. Go back and forth a lot between Order of the Phoenix, Prisoner of Azkaban, and what my number 1 is on like just the order of my top 3, like I said. But Prisoner of Azkaban, yeah, I think this is just like the most technically brilliant Harry Potter movie. If there was one like Harry Potter movie that I think should have been nominated for Best Picture, I would have picked Prisoner of Azkaban. I think just from like a technical lens and objectively speaking about film, I think this is the best made one. And then I like Cam's point in that this franchise does grow with its audience. It never shied away from that. It never shied away from like trying to bring on a new generation, even though we're, at the point of Prisoner of Azkaban, we were, 3-4 years. They're not trying to bring on a new generation. They're trying to grow with their audience. And Prisoner of Azkaban does show that very well. I love everything with the Death Eaters. I love everything with Harry and Lupin. I think there's a lot of just emotional conversations in this movie that I really adore. And then everything with Sirius, who's just right there with Snape as being like the most tragic Harry Potter character. And I love his introduction, how he's kind of introduced as this like piece of shit who you expect to end up being like the big bad of this movie. And he turns out to, obviously be Harry's godfather and just be this loving mentor to Harry, which I fucking adore. And then the Expecto Patronum scene is one of my favorites in the entire, I was about to say entire MCU, entire Harry Potter franchise. That just felt like the most mature moment in Harry's career at that point. That was his triple-double. That was his MVP season. And I fucking love that movie. So I got Prisoner of Azkaban at number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So the Snape revelation scene where you see like the 5-minute flashback of him and Lily Potter and kind of get background on that whole romance and how his life turned out after that, after she married Tom Potter instead of him. Just one of the best scenes ever, like one of my favorite scenes ever in movies. Like that scene's so good. Alan Rickman is so incredible in that scene, just playing such raw emotion as Snape's character finally comes to complete arc, and Harry realizes what Snape kind of was all along, which obviously is kind of a massive curveball from what you watch the first time through. You're like, he's the worst. He's like the worst professor. He's always so mean. He always is conniving and has something up his sleeve, and then it kind of finally comes full circle in this one before he meets his demise. Of course, you get basically an hour and a half of pure action in this movie once the beginning of this movie kicks it off. Some very fun battles. You get Neville with the sword, iconic. And then just the very ending, too, is just awesome with when it just kind of shows like a little flash forward to the future when they're older. Their little kids are being sent off to Hogwarts. And we see that, Ron and Hermione are still together. Harry and Ginny are still together. Draco, he has a kid and a wife, but I can't remember.
Ending scene.
Is that is Draco's wife from anything in Harry Potter? I can't remember that. She's not like a character.
The getting older scene is the up aging rather than de-aging looks bad, I think.
Yeah, they definitely went for like practical effects, which are like makeup or something. It just didn't work out well because the kids were like, I don't know, 22 or 23 or something, and they tried to make them look like 40. But yeah, number 2 for me is Deathly Hallows Part 2. Number 2 for Cam.
My number 2 is The Half-Blood Prince, and I think what makes this movie is just learning a little bit more about Snape. It looks the best. Like Snape's the best character. I think we all agree. Maybe not. I think Snape's the best character. And I think that's the point of his character is like the whole time you think he's a fucking ass. But he really has the deeper motivations of or whatever. Yeah, he's the best. And you learn like he's the Half-Blood Prince. He kills Dumbledore, doesn't disarm him. Very, very detailed oriented movie. I like that. But yeah, you get a ton of him. You get a ton of Harry just learning about Horcruxes, going on the hunt for one. You get some more Dumbledore actions, good stuff. But yeah, I liked the Half-Blood Prince a whole lot. Rip Dumbledore.
Big rip.
Yeah, talked a bunch of shit about him, but in the end, you gotta respect his greatness. I can be a hater all I want, but I can't deny his greatness as a wizard. So rip Dumbledore.
Dumbledore cared about, the survival of the entire wizarding world, so at what cost?
I know, at what cost?
At what cost?
Should have just been pure bloods. Shout out Voldemort, the true GOAT. Also, yeah, Voldemort being Ralph Fiennes, awesome.
Yeah.
So good. And
fantastic
I never noticed when I rewatched these when Max came out. So what was that? Probably 2020, maybe 3 years ago. And then this is my first rewatch of them since. Just awesome. Shout out Ralph Fiennes. Just fantastic as well.
Yeah. He's like he's like right there with Alan as like one of my favorite castings in this universe.
Sure. Yeah.
For sure.
I'm with you.
My number one, I think I was part 2. This is just, I think, this is my only 5-star. Raised it finally to a 5-star.
Getting real bodies from George.
Am I losing him?
No, I think it might be back now. But
am I here?
Voldemort was casting a hex because he doesn't like whatever's about to say for number 1. All right, you're back. What's number 1?
Am I back? All right, my number 1, Deathly Hallows Part 2. On rewatch, when I rewatched this franchise, like, I don't know, a month ago, I just raised this to a 5 stars. I think this is just such a worthy conclusion to this entire franchise. This was such a just incredible task, a fucking Mount Everest to climb to like create a satisfying ending that lives up to just how great this franchise had been up until that point. And I think it absolutely just rose to that task. This is just like, I don't know, it's a 5-star for me just because of what this movie means to me. It was like one of the first films I truly remember falling in love with. I remember going to the midnight premiere of this back when like those were a thing, like 12:01 a.m. showings. I went to it. I just remember that this was the first moment where I was like, yo, movies are fucking dope. This movie was dope, and I love this a lot. But then, like Tyler said, I think there are just a lot of fantastic moments in this movie. It's essentially just one massive battle, but you have the always scene, which is my favorite scene in any Harry Potter movie. You have the final battle with Harry and Voldemort, and they're just going at it for like the final like 25 minutes of this movie. I love the scene in the forest when Harry is killed by Voldemort and he has this conversation with Dumbledore. Neville with the sword, like Tyler said, is just iconic. I think this movie just has so many just like iconic payoffs that I just fucking love, and every time I watch this movie I'm just like, wow, they really did this. Like they really like executed an 8th movie in a franchise, the conclusion, just as brilliantly as they could have. Like I don't think they could have made this movie any better, except for a couple of like changes from the book. But other than that, I fucking love this movie. I think this is the best Harry Potter movie. It's my only 5 out of 5.
Yeah, my number 1 has changed, and it just goes up more on rewatch. And this is a true 0 to hero story because first time I ever saw Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1, firmly in last place. Now it's number 1. This kid, just you count him out when you first see him. You watch that first scrimmage, and you're like, not the best tape I've ever seen from a player. Then you start to put him in the rotation. You're like, gonna give this guy some more minutes, and then after a couple more games, this guy's the star of your team.
Yeah,
he's the star of your team.
He can ball for sure.
Yeah, on the outside looking in, he might not ball, but he might be like Alex Caruso. Like you look at the guy, you're like, he's not going to be putting up crazy numbers. And then you just see him throwing alley-oops and doing 360 dunks. You're like, what's going on here? Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, you guys mentioned it. There's been a lot of movies now and franchises that, probably a lot of the reason is because of Harry Potter that's doing the Part 1, Part 2 finales. A lot of them do it wrong. Mockingjay being the biggest one, I think. What other ones have done? Like, there's so many franchises.
Twilight did it.
Twilight did it.
I have no idea. Those are the
Yeah, I
three.
don't know.
Those are the three big ones that come
Those ones
to
jumping
mind.
out. But yeah, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I think because the first time you're watching it through, or at least for me, I was like, I just want the end battle. Like you give me all this like 2 hours of like drama and nonsense and like running around and chasing things down. But for me personally, I think this is the best looking one of the franchise. The cinematography is great. I mentioned in Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2, the Snape scene, the Revelation scene is one of my favorite scenes of all time. Same in this one, the dancing, the Nick Cave scene between Harry Potter and Hermione is one of my favorite scenes ever. Just so awesome, so heartfelt, because it is, you do grow up with these movies, and it's like rewatching them is, and especially if you watch these again after watching the Harry Potter 20th anniversary, like Return to Hogwarts, and you can like kind of personalize these people more, like realize like, you know, they're people, not just like characters. It's just crazy thinking about the culmination of like these kids have been together since they were like 6, and now they're like 22, and that dance scene is just so emotional. They like everything they've been through in like real life to get to this stage. But I think this movie is so beautiful looking. The Dobby death, incredible, sad. And I don't know, I just appreciate it more. I just feel like the first time I watched it, I was just in a rush. I was like, I just want to get to the final battle. Like we know it's here, as we mentioned, you know, earlier in the pod multiple times. Half-Blood Prince really feels like a part 1 of a 3, where part 1 it kind of shows everything's going to shit now. We need this final battle, and then part 1 kind of says, "Hey, pause. We gotta meditate with these characters a little more. There's some things that need to be done. A lot of character development, and the animated retelling of the story of the Deathly Hallows is awesome.
So good.
I
love it.
So good.
Love that.
I could watch that like over and over as just like a
Yeah.
little clip. Like that might be one of my like. I know we talked about like favorite movie scenes ever, like stuff you want to rewatch on YouTube. Like retelling Deathly Hallows is just like so good. There's such a great way to do that was with that little animation. Completely locked me in. But yeah, Deathly Hallows Part 1 is my favorite, and it's like, you could ask me every morning when I wake up if I prefer Part 1 or Part 2 is my favorite of all time, and I'll probably change it every day. But today I woke up and said Part 1, so that's my number 1. Cam, what is your number 1?
Yeah, all right. My number 1 is Deathly Hallows Part 2. Great. Deathly Hallows Part 2. It's one of my favorites. Hey, hon, can you come grab? 1 second, sorry. He's just freaking out. Deathly Hallows Part 2, I think, is it's the most heartfelt as well as the most action-packed, and I think that combines for just good stuff. So I have it at a 90 out of 100. You've already mentioned it, but the Snape scene is one of the best in the entire Harry Potter franchise. Final battle's great. Could be done better, as we talked earlier. I would have liked like a cooler fight, but it is still great. It shows like that the Elder Wand doesn't work with Voldemort and all that really well. I would have preferred almost if like, and this is not a knock on the movies at all because it's based on source material from the books. I would have liked if like Deathly Hallows Part 1 was like an action adventure trying to like find all of the Horcruxes. Like they only find the one in Part 1, and I know they've destroyed 3 up until this point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or no, they've destroyed 2. Hell.
Well, no, they had destroyed the book.
They destroyed the book. They destroyed the ring.
Yeah.
But they get, and then the Half-Blood Prince leads them to a fake one.
Yeah, and then they destroy the real one in Deathly Hallows Part 1.
But they don't find, well, yes, they do find the real one.
Okay. Yeah, they found the real one.
Okay, so they only find the one and then destroy it. I would have liked if they like find the other or something. I don't know. Again, that's not a knock on the movie necessarily. More so, it just would have been interesting in the books, but you can't change that now. Just kind of my thoughts, but Deathly Hallows Part 2 is so fucking good, man. 90 out of 100. I think everything they did with it is really awesome. And talk about Neville, perfect casting, because like he's this big dweeb who ends up gaining the courage and being a big hero. Shout out him for just being a really good looking dude now. Because like he makes the perfect like character arc just with his looks. He looks like a big dweeb in the first 4. And all of a sudden this dude hits puberty and starts looking really good. And yeah, so shout out Neville for just being like a
probably made the most important play of the whole movie.
He definitely did. And yeah, and it works with his character.
Yeah, he came off the bench and dropped 40.
Exactly. He's a dog now. So shout out him. Yeah, not much more to say about this one. It's just awesome. And then like the Albus and Harry talking, don't pity the deaf, pity the living, and pity those that don't never find love. Fucking awesome. Great line. And then yeah, him coming back and all that jazz is just good stuff. Also, I never realized how like Grindelwald is mentioned in this, and then that's what the Fantastic Beasts are about. I never really realized that before, as I didn't really watch the Fantastic Beasts.
He's mentioned a lot.
Yeah, until like last year.
Yeah.
Bad movies, but you know.
Yeah, I've never rewatched Harry Potter after watching Fantastic Beasts. So yeah, I guess it's something like Grindelwald that you probably just don't pick up on it. But I guess he's mentioned a lot.
He's mentioned with like the Deathly Hallows, and then Voldemort goes to him to learn about who has the Elder Wand, and he learns that like it's buried with Dumbledore and all that jazz. So yeah, you do learn about, or like get Grindelwald mentioned every once in a while.
Well, there's our rankings. Since it kind of took a while, let's go through just quickly listing them off from back to front, just so people can quickly gauge what our rankings are. So George, do you have your rankings ahead of you from like worst to best in the Harry Potter franchise?
Number 8, we had Sorcerer's Stone. Number 7, Chamber of Secrets. 6, Deathly Hallows Part 1. 5, Half-Blood Prince. 4, Goblet of Fire. 3, Order of the Phoenix. 2, Prisoner of Azkaban. And 1, Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Yeah, I go 8, Chamber of Secrets. 7, Sorcerer's Stone. 6, Order of the Phoenix. 5, Prisoner of Azkaban. 4, Goblet of Fire. 3, Half-Blood Prince. 2, Deathly Hallows Part 2. 1, Deathly Hallows Part 1. Cameron.
And then for myself, 8, the only 3.5 out of 5, Chamber of Secrets, and then the rest are 4s, Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, Deathly Hallows Part 1, Prisoner of Azkaban, Half-Blood Prince, and then the only 4.5 and 90 out of 100, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.